Hello and welcome again to HC Vineyards. I'm down in the vineyard office. I got a text from the irrigation system just a while ago, so it reminded me that I needed to get this final video 4 of the computer system for the irrigation. So here, let me show you the office first. Got our cider in the kegs behind me. A lot of distilled water over there. A mess in here, but it'll clean up after. We'll clean it up after we get the bottling done for the season. Again, I hope everybody gets to enjoy some this year. Only 200 gallons, but we'll be making another 200 gallons next year, and hopefully we'll work on the license and get us to a couple thousand soon. I am looking up at my other computer monitor where I have all of the stuff that you're actually looking at, and that's the irrigation system on the internet. I am going to walk through each of these, show you what we have set up, what we're monitoring, and how we can control programming and stuff on it. So I have several views. I can go to the weather station. I'll have another video on that. I have a guest view. I don't have this one turned on for the public because I didn't think I wanted people looking at our actual irrigation stuff all the time. But the weather station public, and we might make that public in the future. But generally, I use the manager page that I've set up for my control. And so over here in this section, I can see the irrigation. I have a slider bar. So I can basically just quickly come in here on my phone, slide it to any amount of time that I might want it to run outside of the regular programming. If I've seen for some reason it hasn't run or something and on the programming and I need to look at it later, I can just run it for an hour, half an hour. I can also type in any specific amount of time, like if I need to look and see if there's a leak or something, I can just set it for 2 or 3 minutes. And which would be 180 or 240 seconds, something like that. Just put it in there, and it'll run. That's all in seconds. Right now, the irrigation is on. I showed you that text that the system sent me, and that's how I knew the irrigation. This one would be green because I get that when it's green. I get text that tells me how much water every 500 gallons it flows. I get a text, and then at midnight it sends me a text of how much we used that day. Here it tells me the pressure at the tank up for the irrigation system, and then the irrigation pump. In the earlier video I showed you there's 2 pressure tanks, so the irrigation pump doesn't run all the time. It pumps up, fills those pressure tanks up, and then it relies on the water in those tanks to run. So it's set just right. We're working with the manufacturer of that pump to make sure we don't burn out the pump. It can run a certain amount of cycles per hour. Over here is Irrigation Flow. So since we've had the system in, we've used 127,000 gallons, which might sound like a lot to some people, but is really a low amount of water. If this can get reset if the system powers down, like every summer. That was one of the things in a prior video I checked. I basically just put the correct amount in there and hit set. The amount on the meter cannot reset. It's hardwired into that meter, the thing that I flipped up in the prior video. So I just have to set this to that, and it tracks. And if it gets off, it'll either be 0 or a small number, and I just put it back to whatever it says on the meter. So it'll always be correct. This is my incremental flow meter for today. This one is counting down from 450 or from 500. It'll tell me every time it gets to 500. This is what it uses to send me that text I was talking about. When I flow 500 gallons, I get a text. This is how much water we've been irrigating since the system turned on at 7:30. I got my you just saw it increment there. I got my text at 7:30, said the system had turned on right on time. I'll show you that programming in a little bit. And this is how much water we put on the vines this week. It resets every Sunday at midnight, so this will all be zeroed out on Sunday, this part. And then It shows me how much we used for the month, and it resets on the last day of the month. Pressure, so I redo the pressure. I added this field. I had the house pressure and the irrigation pressure separate, just relying on the one above, but I found that I like to see both pressures together, so I just duplicated the irrigation pressure here. Check and make sure both pressures are the same. Pump status, we have a separate pump on our house with a pressure tank, much smaller pressure tank, because we don't typically use quite as much water in the same rapid period like we do on the vineyard. We use water all day long in the house, but the vineyard just uses it for an hour or two, but constantly. The irrigation pump, again, duplicate. You see it just turned off there, and it'll turn on again in 4 to 5 minutes. I have a pump down. I think a second or third video in irrigation, you can see that pump, the variable frequency drive pump, right here. That's the one down in the well. This is the one that pumps up to the upper tank. We can see how much water is in the upper tank right here. It's 91% full. The lower tank is 71% full. And right now the well is on, and our water drop is down at 200 feet. Water right this time of year is running about 130, 135 feet. So when the well turns on, it quickly grabs all that water. We'll see some data down below where I chart that, and it'll drop down to probably about somewhere between 200 and 250 feet. And recharge is really quick, so it'll be recharged within 2 to 3 hours after that well shuts off. The lower system, 251,000 gallons. This is how much water we've used since we turned the system on between the house and the vineyard. So you can see in the house we're using roughly the same amount as the vineyard is. It was a single family house. The flow meter from the well to the tank. So we pumped out 236 gallons out of the well, put it into that tank, and it's still running now. That'll basically just recharge that lower tank, get it back up to 100%, fill up the upper tank, and then continuing till they're both 100% full sometime after the irrigation run today. And also in the other video I showed you the soil moisture monitors in the Science Vineyard. This is the soil moisture at 18 inches, 0.85 centibar. That tells me that the water's the soil's pretty moist, both at 18 inches and at 5 feet. We're just getting out of the rainy season, so we had about 10 inches of rain in the last 2 months. And so I'm not irrigating that much, just enough to keep it right around the vines, right around this much. VFD, variable frequency drive fault. So I've got the system hooked up to that VFD down in the well, so I know if it throws an error, something's going on down the well. If the well runs dry, or the pump stops running, or it detects some other issue, it's got a booklet of issues. This system will text me to say I need to go look at that pump. I've got surge protectors for the upper and the lower boxes. I know I showed you all that spaghetti wiring in there, but there are SPDs, and if those fault, those will turn red. Also send me a text so I can go check it out. This would be like a lightning strike or something happening with the electric provider. Both of those systems are basically have a computer control, and the SPDs make a little bit of heat, and they're inside of a box. There's a fan, and it automatically turns on. But I'm also monitoring the interior case temperature, because I don't want that to run over 110, 120 degrees. Otherwise, they'll burn up those computers much sooner. So those will turn green when the fan is on. It just constantly monitors the temperature inside the fan. Now we're getting down into some of the cool stuff, the graphs. So you can see I mentioned our well typically runs this time of year between 130 and 135 feet. We're Look at the average right there. You can see about 133.6 feet. And here the well turned on sometime after 8 o'clock, and it quickly brought it down to 189. This will update every half an hour, and then we can see it recharge later today, and it'll by late afternoon it'll be right back there at 135. This is the monitor of the flow meter, so we can see that it turned on sometime after 8 o'clock, and we flowed at 8:30. We'd flowed 118 gallons from the well to that lower tank. Here's the lower tank level. Same thing. You can see right around 7:30, right after 7:30, it started dipping down as the irrigation system started drawing from that tank. Here's the same thing with the upper tank, and you see right here it's starting to fill back up. And the last thing is an incremental count of how much we've irrigated, so I can see how and when that irrigation went on. And remember, my goal here is to get the roots of the vines as deep as possible and as broad as possible, so we don't have to water them in future years, if and when we're in drought conditions, which surprisingly we're not. 135 feet is pretty darn good for our well right now. So I'm just going to change the controls here and go over to our, these are a lot of my events. I have a calendar event set up, and I have an irrigation schedule. This is the one that's active. I have it set up to daily. And you can see I have it started in April, and I have it set up to run every 2 days, and I have it set up to run for 2 hours. So we're using a half gallon per hour drip irrigators. So we're basically just putting 1 gallon of water on the vines per vine right now every other day, and it will just monitor that soil moisture and correct it as appropriate.